Okay, so for this move, we're going to be traveling forwards in a 2-foot glide, and we're going to turn ourselves to backwards, keeping 2 feet on the ice the whole time. But all you're going to use your arms and your hips mainly for this move. So how I like to explain, how I like to build up with my students when I'm teaching this, is to imagine that you're skating in a straight line, but what you're going to do is you're going to reach around and you're going to grab onto something. I usually use the image of a wall, for instance. You're going to grab that wall back there. You're going to have your knees nice and slightly bent. Then what's really going to work here is your hips pushing against that wall, flicking your hips all the way around to backwards. So here I'm going to do a demonstration of how to turn from forwards to backwards whilst moving in a straight line. You're going to see that, as I said, it's in a complete straight line. If you're curving at all, you know you're not doing it right. You want to be keeping on. I've used the blue line here on the floor, as you can see, to give me a guideline of where my feet should stay the whole time. So I'm going to start off in my 2-foot glide. I'm going to rotate my arms to grab my wall, and I'm going to pull my hips around in order to get around to backwards. Now note, when you do this turn, it has to be quick. That's why you really prepare for it by getting those arms back, and then you use those hips. When you're practicing it, when you're standing still, you should maybe even think about you've got a set of keys down by your blade here, and you want to flick those keys away, all right, from the back, using the back of your blades. So now I'm going to demonstrate while moving forwards. Staying on a straight line on the blue line, I've got my knees slightly bent, my arms rotate and grab onto my wall, and I flick. And you can still see that I'm traveling along the blue line as I finish. Now we're going to talk about some common mistakes with this move. I've seen a lot of people do the mistake where you travel along in a straight line, but as you're about to get to the turn, as you're about to do it, they really curve and they really hook it around. Remember, this should be done in a straight line. So if you find yourself going along and rotating your arms at the last second and curving those feet around and you almost come to a stop, you know that you're not doing something right. You want to make sure that you stay on a straight line the whole way through. Your arms rotate. You can see my arms are rotated, but my feet are still in a complete straight line here, and I'm going to use my hips to get to backwards, not pulling my arms and rotating to go on a curve here to try and get to backwards. Otherwise, you're going to be curving, not turning. All right, we're going to talk about now turning backwards to forwards. We've done the forwards to backwards. Now we need to make sure we get from backwards to forwards. So it's very similar from the forwards to backwards turn. You want to, again, make sure your body is completely pre-rotated before you think about turning, with your head up and your body straight. Then you're going to flick your feet to forwards. Another thing to take into account is where your weight should be during these turns. It is very different when you're turning from forwards to backwards than it is from when you're turning backwards to forwards. When you're turning forwards to backwards, you'll see on your blade, you want to be turning around about this area. That's what we call the ball of the blade. That's exactly where you want to be turning from forwards to backwards on both of your feet. So you get your weight set up in the middle of the blades when you're here. You can see my knee bend. I rise to go to the ball and back down onto the middle again. When you're turning from backwards to forwards, it's the opposite. Again, you start off on the middle of your blade, but you'll be turning on the back of your blade. So if you look down here, you want to be turning around about here. You can see you're not too far near the heel, too far away from the heel, but you don't want to be right on that heel getting up too high. You just want to be near the back of the blade, so you can see my toe is slightly lifted off as I step down to forwards. Why do we do this? Why do we want to turn on those places in the blade? If you try and turn on the back of the blade from forwards to backwards, you're going to get stuck. That's going to be a problem. And exactly the same thing goes from the backward to forward turn. If you try and turn on the toes, you get stuck. There's no way you can go from that, which is why when we're turning from forwards to backwards, we turn on the fronts of the blades near the balls, and from the backwards to forwards, we get right up onto the heel and turn to forwards.